Hello and welcome back to the Florida Relocation Guide, your smartest way to move to and/or purchase a new construction home across the whole Sunshine State. I am your host, Adam Hancock, and today I want to focus on the Sarasota, Florida Metro as it relates to families. I have 5 potentially interesting options for incoming families in an area that's really progressed in an advantageous manner, in my opinion, when it comes to this demographic versus the very historical, specific, retirement-centric nature of our lovely city here. So I'm going to give you my take, why I think they matter, and hopefully it even adds a little extra value in case you love one of these concepts, but not the particular neighborhood, if that makes sense. So we're gonna do that, hope you enjoy, and of course, at any point in the process, if I can add you value at all when it comes to Florida real estate everything, please do not hesitate to reach out and let's get started. Number 1 on my list in no particular order is a community called Skye Ranch, Sarasota. This is a new construction outfit, multiple little villages that make up a mini master plan area. It's primarily built by Taylor Morrison Homes. There's custom builders in here as well. Tons of variety, interesting overall, which I want to get into a bit more. But what I'd like to hop to right away is talk about why I like it for families in 2024. First on that list is the central nature of the location. I mentioned briefly in the introduction that, for lack of better words, Sarasota is getting cooler, especially if you are a little younger and or you have young kids. There's things that happened in the last 3, 4, 5 years that never existed in my entire lifetime from a development standpoint in the Sarasota Manatee metros. So the way it can satiate an incoming family now is more unique than it's ever been. And what Skye Ranch Sarasota does that not everywhere does is it gives you access to almost everything. A sampling platter of the best of what Sarasota, Florida has to offer. So for instance, if you go west, 10 miles directly parallel to Siesta Key, Florida. 4.7 miles above that, you have downtown Sarasota, which is very coastal. So 4.7 miles the other direction from downtown Sarasota, you have Lido Beach, and that goes out to Longboat Key. So that little triangle there offers most of the cosmopolitan shopping, dining, bay, beach lifestyle that people dream of when they move to and/or retirement in the Sarasota, Florida Metro. The whole reason it became popular. So it gives you new construction housing not that far from that. But beyond that, this also sits right below, less than that amount of miles, to the coolest parts of the #1 multi-generational master plan community that exists called Lakewood Ranch, Florida. That's a city on its own outright. So they built many things in there that are especially advantageous to families. They have downtown Waterside Place, which is the newest, sexiest downtown that's right above it in the Sarasota part of Lakewood. Near that is downtown Lakewood Ranch. Near that is University Town Center. So you have the malls, all the shopping, the #1 farmer's market, technically in the state of Florida. It's safe, it's clean, all of that. You can access it without living necessarily directly in it. And then to finish, if you go the other direction, you have South Sarasota below you with Gulf Gate and all that district. You have Venice, you have Welland Park. So if you had to sit one spot on a map, this one becomes a good example. Okay, the second thing I really like about Skye Ranch right now is the family-friendly nature of their home variety. So say you were interested in what I just talked about previously, well, that was all geography-driven, had nothing to do with the house. If you like all of that and you come to this area, there's not 50 neighborhoods built after 2015. So what Taylor Morrison did to circumvent that, in my opinion, is that they gave more people, more families, a shot at picking where you'd like to live on a map and then figuring out the house part, the price point, the size and all of that. So you don't get excited about this and then this is a bummer. And they did it in a unique way for a single neighborhood. You know, the master plans of the world, they have a bunch of neighborhoods around each other, but for a single neighborhood, I thought they kind of peacocked this in an interesting way. You know, they have one village called Cassia at Skye Ranch, Cassia. And they don't say it's the family one, but there's more 2-story than 1-story. There's en-suites, there's lofts, there's stuff that, you know, just makes sense for a family model. Tons of floor plans to choose from. It gives a lot of people a chance, very resort style, but also family-friendly amenities. There's already tons of kids in here, and it looks like it's in that direction. Well, then as an alternative to that, they built one called Esplanade at Skye Ranch. So this has no 2 stories, I think right now, technically. It has some of their most popular floor plans, like the Palazzo and the Lazio. These are traditional, you know, single-story homes that people come down from the Northeast and come into. There's villas in here, split-level villas, in case maybe you have a mother-in-law or something like that. And they have amenities that only Esplanade can use. So Esplanade is historically the resort-style flagship brand of Taylor Morrison. If it's not a 55 and up restricted community, but if Taylor Morrison had one, this would probably be it. And again, all my personal opinion. So the Esplanade residents can use their own amenities. They can use Casilla at Skye Ranch's amenities, not the other way around. So it almost creates an adult pool of sorts. And they're going to expand that from what I hear. They're going to potentially build that Bahama bar where it's a swim up bar with food service at their pool, stuff like that. But if you have kids and you feel yourself falling on side number 2, then you got that option. There's also townhomes in here that give you a way more advantageous price point as far as like the low 300s versus that not being commonplace. There's custom builders. You kind of get the point that should overall help a buyer. And then beyond the homes themselves and the geography, if I kind of finish with a 3-headed monster of 3, 4, and 5, one is the amenities themselves. The cool thing here is regardless of which one of these options you end up choosing, you're not going to really lack amenities in a big way. They may differ stylistically, but you're going to have the resort-style pools in each of them. You're going to have the green space and the cabanas and some fire pits here and there. And there's some cooler stuff in some than others. But the base level of stuff is there. And I intimately know this, but if you're watching this, you probably do too, if you have a family especially, is that you, as much as you'd love to shoot to the beach every day, that's not realistic. You're probably living a life that's way closer to your neighborhood than not. So having this stuff in close proximity is key. Number 4, future development. I don't know how much you have read about the 3H Ranch, all the development that's going behind Skye Ranch. And if you look at it on a map, all this land there, they have big plans for it. So what's going to come by, let's say now to 2040, most likely, is you're going to have a whole entire master plan concept. You're going to have 12, 14 new neighborhoods that come east of this, which is probably going to create the communal commercial spaces, communal office spaces, communal town centers. So you might even, you have close proximity to all that stuff now, you might have your own here in the future. And if I had all of that, I'd want to be as west as I can in town because that's where the water is. So this stuff building behind Skye Ranch is good for you because of the western nature. And then lastly, it wouldn't be on this list if I thought schools were a big problem. So the public schools in this area are going to be good. You got a good high school, you have a middle, and you have an elementary that's all completely good for most people when it comes to school ratings. You also have future development coming with some K-8 public and/or public charters that are going to come to this area because they're trying to meet the need of the new housing. Private schools are really abundant. You have Out-of-Door Academy, you have Cardinal Mooney, which I went to for a short period of time. You have St. Stephen's, amongst many others. But the ODA, Out-of-Door Academy Elementary School, which currently sits, it's the lower school, which sits in Siesta Key because of old land arrangements. I believe their second outfit is coming to this area. So it comes at a pretty penny. But if that is applicable to you, then this should only get better with time. Number 2 is Talon Preserve on Palmer Ranch. This is a single new construction neighborhood built by a company called DeValsta Homes, which is owned by the parent company of Pulte Homes. And it has 4 separate home collections, everything from split level villas to a bunch of different kinds of single family homes, wide degree of price points, square footages, and all the stuff you'd really come to expect in our new development environment we sit in. The reasons I like it right now for families in 2024. Number 1, again, is a geography play, but it's a unique coastal one. If you're in Talon Preserve, you are 6 miles one way to Nokomis Beach, which puts you about 7 miles one way to Casey Key, the home of Stephen King, the author, I think still technically. But that, I don't know if that sounds unique to you, just listening to this, depending on your perspective, but that's not common. That's not super common. And I think it's going to become less and less common. To be this far west in a full neighborhood with this kind of option is going to become more rare, I think, as we go here. Because if you think about that coastline, regardless of where you are in the state of Florida, that area got popular first. It was just developed first. So to get new construction that mixes with this kind of coastal feasibility is a lost art, which I really like. And then the neighborhood on the website is called Talon Preserve at Palmer Ranch. This is not Palmer Ranch in any sense of the word of how I grew up. Most of Palmer Ranch sits a good distance above this in South Sarasota. This one bleeds into Nokomis. And I think for that reason, and probably the reason they branded it Palmer, it's overlooked because Nokomis and Osprey are really towns that people drive through to get from South Sarasota to Venice. And I think because this one's not overly master planned, it's a single neighborhood that's around mature neighborhoods, then potentially it could be underrated, which could benefit you. Okay, reason number 2 I like Talon right now is what I'm going to call, for lack of better words, bonus amenities. This neighborhood I would consider is a normal new construction neighborhood. It's got 926 home sites. It's all built by one builder. It's master planned. It has stuff in here that I don't see typically in this kind of neighborhood, which could be items that push you over the edge. So I have some notes here just to articulate a little better, but I wanted to relay this to you if you weren't aware. So you got your, resort style pools. Of course, it has natural gas if you're into cooking or heating stuff faster. Heated spa. It has splash pad, which not everyone has, but a lot do. One thing, full service restaurant, bar and grill. You do not see that in a lot of neighborhoods that are not 55 and up or golf course clubhouse communities. There is an 18,000 square foot grand clubhouse in here, which has community rooms, social. A lot of people have that. But this one has an arcade room in it. It has like a kid's arcade room that you'd see at like a resort or something. I don't know how to describe it, but that surprised me when I first saw it. So again, another kid-friendly thing. Of course, there's a zero entry to the pool, so just pulling out the kid stuff. 8 pickleball courts. If you haven't played that yet, that is in vogue in Sarasota, probably everywhere. 2 tennis courts, 4 bocce ball. There is, of course, a children's playground. Seeing if anything else makes sense here. There's a dog park. But the restaurant, the arcade, some of that kind of stuff, like I can't harp enough. Like I think it's pretty sweet to have that kind of convenience. Like it's better than maybe joining the social membership of a golf course, potentially, and built into your HOA. So anyway, just food for thought. Okay, and I wanted to mention one more potential value add as a third option in the Talon Preserve conversation before we conclude this section, and that is the rest of the geography proximity you have available to you. I mentioned that you are 6 miles one way from a close by beach, Nokomis Beach, which puts you 7 miles one way from Casey Key. So that's nice, like your hometown beach. What I did not mention, which is even more rare than just that, is you're less than 7 miles to Venice Island as well. So that's downtown Venice, Florida. And it's interesting in a lot of ways. One, that stylistically, it's like a historic old school Florida beach town. It's a mix of a little bit like Siesta Key, but more laid back, and then some other stuff. But it's very, very charming. It's also not a barrier island. So it feels incredibly more coastal because there's no divide from bay to beach. And it has 3 beaches on its own outright. So you have Venice Beach right there within walking distance of the island. Casperson Beach is the shark's tooth capital of the world. Brohard Beach is the only dog beach in both of these counties combined. So you're talking 7 miles from 5 beaches, which is really, really interesting. So this is another little in-betweener because that's south. If you look north, you're 13 miles one way from Siesta Key as well, which has 3 beaches, including the main Siesta Key, Crescent, and Turtle. And then if that's not enough for you, you're 5.5 miles from a state park, which has like 15, 20 miles of walking trails, all kinds of stuff like that. Venice is a little bit more nature-centric when you get in this direction. 9 miles from Potter Park, which is like mixed-use green spaces and sports fields, stuff like that. So I think it's a very different and maybe an older school alternative to living amongst the Sarasota County conversation, which doesn't exist as much in the hyper-development world, but also being able to get a new house and a logistically advantageous relocation. Number 3 on my list is a community called Vistera of Venice. And the main reasons I like this one at the moment, and also why it's intentionally placed number 3 on this particular videos list, is I think you could take some pros from both of the previous 2 neighborhoods I went over and combine them to give you a really nice third balanced option of sorts. So for instance, when it comes to location, Vistera sits about 5 miles below our second community, Talon Preserve. So you're going to be south of Sarasota city limits and even south of the main part of western Nokomis. So you almost get exactly parallel here to downtown Venice Island. So a lot of those same Venice Beach and the Dog Beach and the Shark's Tooth Beach, Casey Key, Nokomis Beach, all the Oscar Scheer Park, the outdoor amenities that I mentioned that you could get romantic about in this kind of area, you still have all that access, right? So that's one. Number 2 is I mentioned that Talon Preserve was a nice single new construction neighborhood, a single builder. Skye Ranch, on the other hand, was mostly a single builder, but other stuff sprinkled in. But it was multiple villages that had separate gates and a lot of separation. This one's kind of in between both of those. It's above one, not quite as robust as the other. What Vistera, in essence, is going to give you is more of a single neighborhood, but mixed builder. So you're going to be able to do David Weekley in here, Neal Communities, which is the master builder. You're going to be able to do MI Homes. They do have paired villas with the Neal product. So I don't know if you've ever seen that at Windward or Grand Park or Canoe Creek, but a lot of people really like those. They're pretty affordable for what they are. They kind of live like a single family. But regardless, you're going to have options within it. The community is going to look more diverse too. It's going to be less platted out because of the mix of the different builder front elevation styles. Really nice, it's kind of like a normal amenity center on steroids. So it covers a big swath of land, but it has all the normal trappings that you come to expect. The resort style pools, a lot of green space, all of those kind of things. And then as I kind of round out this section here, 3 other quick things that I like. One, I think it provides some perspective affordability on new construction housing, which isn't super commonplace. You have a lot of starting price points in that low 4 range. Obviously, these are base prices, but even as you cascade up, it gives you a good balance for the size of what you could get. Secondly, I like that it's above Venice Island. So being above the island versus below it, i.e. Welland Park, it gives you an alternative, but it also gives you a little closer proximity to Sarasota versus going further south, obviously. And then lastly, this particular area, if you look at the way Talon Preserve is, you look at Vistera of Venice, you look at Magnolia Bay, which is another one by Meritage Homes, and then you have Silo that was already there, Vincenza, Toscana Isles. You look at all these communities that are kind of, they in theory were onesie, twosie, one thing at a time, they weren't combined. And then you look above you into South Sarasota, what was the old school Palmer Ranch, above that, what Sarasota Central is going to become, and above that, what Lakewood Ranch has already become, or below you with Welland Park. You could, in essence, in a more simple way of saying it, see a line of sight to say that at some point, the master plan nature of going all the way western to the water-based Nokomis and all the way eastern to the northern Nokomis, North Venice, this area looks about the same logistically as areas that have been previously intentionally master planned. So I could see at some point communal amenities coming in and these communities offering more when you leave your individual neighborhood as they relate to someone planning around all the communities that could come in the future. Number 4 on my list, we are heading up to Lakewood Ranch, Florida, and talking about a community called Star Farms. So this is another new construction development that I like in large part because I think it filled an interesting void that previously existed. So Lakewood Ranch, Florida it's a big place. That would be an understatement. It's a #1 master plan community. I think I mentioned already in this video, but when you build 30, 40 plus communities and all the stuff around it, you basically in essence build your own city. And because of the amount of space it takes to do that, at a certain point, everything doesn't become necessarily equal, rightfully so, especially when it comes to logistics and geography. So you have communities in the Waterside district, like Avanti or Windward or something like that, that might be like 9, 10 miles one way to town, the main town, Sarasota stuff. They have other communities in Lakewood Ranch that might add 20, 30 minutes to that same kind of commute, but also be in the same suburb. And this is what people deal with when they're looking to move because they're saying, I'm moving to Sarasota and the beaches and the water and the downtown and all of that kind of thing, that the reason that any of this stuff even exists in Sarasota. So at a certain point, people are, thinking, if I go 50 minutes one way from all that stuff, then, does that defeat the purpose? Or maybe I'm okay with doing that, but what do I get for that trade-off? And then this is basically the quadrant nature of how Lakewood Ranch evolved to, in a real quick sense. If you take the newest part, which is, so Lakewood Ranch is basically built, all of Sarasota is really built in grids. It's roads like Fruitville, University, State Road 70, State Road 64. I'm building a map here with my hands. And then I don't know if it's opposite camera here, but we have the interstate, Lakewood Ranch Boulevard, Lorraine, Uline, Bourneside, and that's what creates this grid nature of things. And then downtown Sarasota sits over here with the beaches. So Lakewood Ranch is up here. So it's like this angle right here. So if you get up here, it's further, obviously. You get over here, maybe not that much further. That's the whole geography conversation. So you build a waterside, which exists right above Fruitville, right above University. It's the very first part of Lakewood Ranch that's ever existed that's looped into Sarasota County. Which doesn't matter a whole lot other than schools. Very important for this conversation. But other than that, it's just where it sits on a map. Those areas, the angle of it, closest part to downtown Sarasota, which is the beaches and all that too, if that matters to you. At least it's a good starting point foundationally. And then as you work your way up, you have the beginning parts of Manatee County. This is the Isles, Lake Club, Country Club West and East, some of these originals. And then you keep going up above that. And then this is where the meat of Lakewood Ranch was originally built, with Summerfield and Greenbrook, River Club, all that kind of stuff. And then what evolved first was they got to go north, right? They got to get more land. So the newest, sexiest part 5 years ago was north of the original part. So it was over on this side. I don't want to get too crazy here, but it's important to me. It was over on this side. And for reference, that goes above State Road 70, and you get like your Central Parks, your Mallory Parks, your Indigos with Neil. Lakewood Ranch High School's up in this area. Savannah's above it. That was the newest part where people are like, okay, Summerfield was built in 1995. Greenbrook built 1995 to 2005. River Club's a little older and, it's unique. Country Club West East is a golf community, unique. There was no waterside originally. So all you could do was go up. You couldn't go down. And then this is where the new construction was. The high school's right there, a lot of family-based housing. A lot of people jumped from like Summerfield, the original communities, up to the central parks of the world, and they were like kind of neighborhood hopping. And then they built Esplanade Golf and Country Club with Taylor Morrison, the original one. And that started to say like, okay, if I'm gonna go north now, and maybe I'm not, like, it's not about kids in school, then, I got golf up there, it's deeded. Country Club West and East was built a long time ago. And it's also a public club, it's private memberships, but it's not deeded club. So it gave another golf option, but that gave people, all I'm getting at here is that gave people a reason to take a geography sacrifice, a logistic sacrifice. I go further, I get more. And that was the more family friendly, cheaper or newer homes, resort style amenities that you could not get anywhere else, i.e. new golf. That's the whole evolution. What they did after that, more space, mirrored it, still north, but east. So you get on this side, they build Lorraine Lakes with Lennar, Sweetwater MI Homes, another Esplanade at Azario, Park East to offer a more affordable alternative to the golf community of Esplanade at Azario. You have Pulte up there and all multiple Lennar and Lakewood Ranch Golf and Country. I'll digress. But you kind of get the point, right? Like that's how these master plan things evolve. They're just stretching in and out and stuff. But if you take a step back, you're saying, well, Waterside was added, so now I got a lower portion. You used to only be able to go north. Now people go north and south. There's always a trade-off. But now you got stuff here, and you also have stuff up here. Well, the stuff up here, in theory, if you take any sort of like getting further from the stuff, of course, that's where the land is at and stuff. At a certain point with enough communities, just having a new home and sacrificing 20 miles wasn't enough for people. Because there's a bunch of new home options, right? And these are just in a silo up there. All that to say, what Star Farms did was they took away a lot of the tug of once you get up there, you didn't just get your neighborhood. Star Farms basically did kind of what Skye Ranch did in some ways, is it's a mini master plan community within a master plan. It's everything but the beach. Their premise is really like, if we could get all the kind of builders, all the different price points, all the types of homes, all the size homes, amenities in a unique way, get near the schools, get near where they're going to build new schools and all of that kind of stuff, then basically this little quadrant up here that was just basically a new part that still had to go down to all the amenities, maybe at a certain point it doesn't. Maybe like that's not a huge sacrifice. Maybe that is your town. That's where I like it right now. And that was more convoluted than I thought, but that's why I like it right now. So just to finish off here, we have, it's master planned by D.R. Horton. So this is where it gets a little bit more unique too. D.R. Horton is incredibly affordable on average. It's just like Lennar in a lot of ways. I think it's America's biggest builder. It's spec building, inventory building. If you're not super familiar, they're building it whether you're coming or not for the most part. Economies of scale. It's no frills, and not in a negative way really, but it is like the reason that it can be more affordable is because there's not a lot of custom options and things like that. They can bulk buy materials, all that. That's their business model. They're not saying they're a custom builder. They master plan it, so they have a huge presence there. Tons of floor plans, and this is where you would go to get as much size as possible for the price. So if you have a big family, interesting option. You just got to keep them in their lane. This is not a custom home. But what they did weirdly in addition to that is then they added these really bougie custom builders. So they have Arthur Ruttenberg, Lee Weatherington, John Cannon here. So you have a $400,000 D.R. Horton house in another part of the neighborhood. You could do a $3.5 million custom home. And people are like, I don't know how to feel about this at first. And then lastly, and I'll explain that in a minute, but lastly, they added Homes by West Bay, which does kind of in between these two. So like if D.R. Horton might be at 650, 700K, something like that, and a good size house, Arthur Ruttenberg might be at like 2.5, 3 million, whatever. Then maybe Homes by West Bay is at like a 1.2 million, 1.3. Maybe it's not quite as crazy custom, but it's in between. So it gives you a peacock of sorts of options. And my thought on that, at the beginning where people that were doing custom homes were maybe fearful that D.R. Horton was going to diminish the value of their homes because they sit near each other. My thought is that there's a lot of lifestyle benefits to being in Northeast Lakewood Ranch. I mean, if you have a family, the schools are phenomenal. They're only going to get better. I mean, they have public charters up there. They have private stuff. They have Lakewood Ranch High School. The elementary and the middle school there are super highly rated. They're really close by because the oldest house in this entire place was built in 1995. So the intentionality of them knowing the plan the whole time, in some sense, makes everything smarter. And then You have a huge premier sports complex there that gives your kids like tons of great options if your kids play any sports especially. You have a new aquatics center that's state of the art. You have a state of the art library that has like co-working spaces and innovation galore. And it's just becoming a whole thing. And it's all like sits in this little direction here. Well, if you love all of that and you look at all your home options and it's Lennar, Pulte, MI Homes, you know, maybe Esplanade Zaria, Taylor Morrison isn't the right fit for you, whatever it may be. You start to cascade on this thing. You have D.R. Horton here. You have D.R. Horton in Solera. What if you want a custom Arthur Ruttenberg house? You also have 3 kids. Like the pigeonholing of that model, I think, has been a little too drastic in the past. So this solves that problem. Amenities are crazy. They're tiered. There's like 4 different sections of the community that have separate centers that all offer different things. And I think it borderline gets to an interesting concept that will only evolve in the future here. Everything but the beach. And let's do one more. All right, the 5th and final one on my list is called Cherokee Park. And this would be the unicorn in the overall conversation. My natural inclination, if you're relocating, regardless whether you have kids, you're past that stage or before that stage, whatever it may be, in a lot of senses, the new construction density in Sarasota is interesting. The way the suburbs orient to the town. In most cases, you'll get more in every category of your house criteria, your price criteria, everything, by trying to grab one of the eastern, northern, or southern suburbs of the town. So that's where I always lean. That's why it's always, I talk about it's just the best way to learn too. Even if you buy a resale of a community that was built 10 years ago, the best way to progress through that search is to use these guys as talking head. Number 5 is different than that conversation. So I've talked about this a little bit in the past and a little bit in this video probably as well, but if you're coming to Sarasota for the old school John Ringling Paradise reasons, if you're not in love with traditional Pleasantville new construction, any of those kind of things, if you do have a pretty generous bucket of money to purchase this house with, then there's a section of Sarasota that is unlike most places I've seen, I would say US as a whole. It's very, very unique. And I call it the magical triangle. This is a piece of town that offers the best of the best of the best of everything that this town is built around and is known for. And where it sits basically is we have barrier islands mostly, especially in the Sarasota and northern Manatee lines, which simply means that it's mainland bridge that crosses bay to Gulf waters. So the beaches and the mainland are close to each other, but it is a pretty good separation. You're either on it or you're not for the most part. And even if you're 3-4 miles, that's not a 3 to 4 minute commute to the beach. The downtown, which is also a great part about this town, hugs the coast, just like Naples. So you go west, you have everything. You have the main downtown district of downtown Sarasota that's 4.7 miles one way to Lido Beach, which is one of the closest Barrier Island beaches. You cross over this little bridge over past Bird Key, this amazing neighborhood, and you get to Lido Key, and then you have my favorite beach in town, probably personally, but then you have St. Armand Circle as well, which is like 100+ shop, boutique, restaurant, literally upscale beach shopping district, real cosmopolitan. That whole thing's unique over there. And then that bleeds right into Longboat Key. That's the second point of the triangle. And then the third point of the triangle is that same distance here, right? Because you're not going from here to here. You're going from downtown Sarasota to the other direction. You get to the Siesta Key area. That's 4.7 miles too. And you're talking between what I just named here with all of that, I would say some of the top 3-4 beaches and barrier islands in the country as a whole on a lot of people's lists, right? You have quartz white sand, you have just beautiful islands. And Siesta Key has 3 beaches on it. So it's so interesting. But the most interesting part of all of this is the access. If you're close to everything I just said and you can't access it, it's not near as functional as the alternative. So you need to be by the bridges. And this magical triangle is basically, it's called west of the trail, but it's one section of it. Where this neighborhood, Cherokee Park, sits on a map, which we'll obviously show here, is you are the closest you can be to the water, still being on the mainland, and you are slightly south of the southern Lido Beach Bridge. So you go right there, and you're slightly north of the northern Siesta Key Bridge. So you can go boom, boom, boom. And then you look to your right, and you're less than a mile one way of downtown Sarasota. So if it's me and I'm looking for the best of the best of the best, I don't want to be pigeonholed to any of them. I don't want to be in downtown Sarasota. I don't want to be on any of the beaches in a perfect world, because when you get over there or in there, it's lovely. Don't get me wrong, but it's a commitment. I'd rather be in the middle of all of it, have access to all of it, not be stuck on any of it. And Cherokee Park offers that in a really interesting way. And beyond that, you're not talking condominiums here. This isn't high-rise Brickell, Miami. This is large single-family homes that are historic, that are charming, and have mature landscaping. There's urban infill, really, there's really modern-looking new construction stuff mixed in if people were able to acquire the land, knock it down, etc. Inventory scarcity, all of that's going to be an issue in this area. It's not going to come at what I just described doesn't come at a discount either when it comes to price. But you also have a really highly rated public school right there called Southside. You have Southside Village, which is a really interesting kind of quaint town center district on its own outright. But just access overall is really incredible. So I wanted to use Cherokee Park as a talking head. It's probably maybe my favorite neighborhood in all of Florida, just because of what I just said. But you could also look at Harbor Acres, McClellan Park, Bayview. What's important to me is you stay within the triangle. Because even if you go like San Remo and Granada, then what you do is you start to get a little closer to one of the points of the triangle, like Siesta Key, but you start to lose access to the others. So the middle is what I'm after. All right, my friends, that is a wrap for today's edition of the Florida Relocation Guide, your smartest way to move to and/or invest across the whole Sunshine State. My name is Adam Hancock. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel. Ton of stuff planned for the balance of the year. So I want you to be able to be the first to see that stuff. From here, what to do. Three-headed monster. One is free stuff. If you go to the sunshinestateco.com and you're in the research phase, you want to be passive, you're like, I don't want to hop on the phone with anyone, anything like that, and you're exploring, especially Southwest Florida, we have relocation guides. I put out analytical tools throughout the year, and we basically throw everything in this bucket where you can independently learn more contextually. If you resonate with these videos, it really accents it. Number two, one great way to kind of kick the stone down the road faster. So if you're trying to figure things out, especially if you like anything in these videos, just ask questions. This doesn't have to be some long thing. You could write me an email at the address below. You could go to the contact page on the website, anything like that, and just say, hey, you mentioned this. I'm looking at this. What else should I do? Or I'm doing this, or whatever it may be. And we could really shortcut a lot of those things because there's real rhythms with this. We do like 95% relocation from out of state or country. That becomes very heavy in the new construction world. So we're like way deeper in specific subjects than a lot of people are, because it's an analytical geography macro conversation that becomes micro. So there's that. And then third, there's not a lot of things that just beat a phone call. It doesn't matter if you're 3 years out or you're a month out. If you hop on the phone with someone on our team, which we have the team, none of this is in a silo. So it's all in the same vein of my methodology. You hop on a call and you say, my name is this. I'm from here. I'm trying to do this. I've done this so far. I think I'm going to do this. I'm coming to town here. You could even say, I saw this one video and he said this. What else should I look at? There's nothing else that like makes your process more efficient with that. And then you can do that, talk to that same person the whole time. And then you can come to town. That be the person that shows you. And that's the art form of the relocation. It's the best use of your time when you're not here. It's the best use of your time when you are here. And it's the most pleasant way to do this thing. So if any of that sounds relevant to you, please consider reaching out. We have lots of ways to do so. And most importantly, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. We'll see you on the next one.